What's up guys, Cass here from TigreX Studios, and on this one we're going to do something a little different. I'm calling this a breakdown video, not so much a tutorial, because sometimes I just don't have the means or maybe even just the will to set up video equipment and record to make a full tutorial. So sometimes I just kind of just rush through the whole thing, just get it done so I can get it out the door to the client and make sure that they get their stuff on time. This TigreX helmet is a perfect example of that. Didn't have enough time to sit down and record a video, but I did end up finishing it ahead of schedule. So I've had a couple of days to just kind of do this breakdown for you guys. So how this works is basically I'm going to show you guys the patterns that I use. So in case you buy the digital patterns on giveawaystudios.com, you'll know how to put the pieces together and how to match it up. So as you guys can see, I have 4 different sets of patterns here that basically make up the entire build of this helmet, and we'll go through them one after the other. I just wanted to give you guys a better look of the build a little bit more close up. You can see we have the LED eyes, and there's a switch in here that can turn them on or off. Okay, this piece here, you can slide this up, and there is a little magnet here, I don't know if you guys can see it, that catches another magnet here so that when I put it up, it stays up and the person can breathe, look out, or whatever the case may be. This is also magnetic and can be removed for transport or maybe to repair the wires or anything like that. The horns also are removable magnetically. As you can see, there are 2 magnets here, 2 magnets here that correspond to the horns, right? And then obviously the face mask part of the build that also comes out and is also attached with magnets on the inside. Okay? And because it's just on one axis, it allows the wearer to either pull the helmet up or bring it down, whatever the case may be, so that they can achieve the look they're trying to go for. Okay? So first thing I did when I built this helmet was make the face mask, and that is fairly simple to put together. So as you guys can see, this is the general setup of this mask. These are the 6 parts that go together to basically make this. So this is the base of the mask. As you can see, there's a left and a right to the pattern. Okay, so do make sure that you flip your patterns, especially if you have texture in your foam on the underside. Right, so basically you're going to slice this edge here on the underside at a 45-degree angle, which is going to allow the foam to meet at kind of like an angle, which just give you this nice line here in front. Once you have the base, what you can do is these guys are going to go next. So this guy is going to go second on top of this, and this will be a 2mm piece. Okay, once you have this on, you're going to put this guy on top of this. Now when you put this 3rd layer on top of this one, you might have to stretch this out a little bit so that it aligns exactly where it's supposed to, because the more layers you put on your foam, the more you're reducing the length or increasing the length that the foam has to go across. So you need to just kind of like stretch it so that it meets up exactly where it's supposed to, right? As you guys can see from the example here. Okay, same thing for the bottom of the chin, which is like this. Okay, so you got this, and these are purposely longer than the base on purpose. You can trim them if you'd like. I ended up leaving them because I wasn't sure if I was gonna do a strap also on the inside here, like an elastic strap to kind of make sure that it's kept in place, but I ended up going with magnets. But you can definitely trim the excess. Here I wrapped it around. You get the idea. You want to make sure you mirror your patterns. You glue this together, glue this together, glue the chin together, glue this together, and once you have all the parts glued, then you put them on top of each other like so. Once this is assembled and you have all of that, you can also work on the little teeth. There's going to be information on these as well. So this little domey part here, that gets cut at a 45-degree angle, and that gets assembled together, and that'll give you a three-dimensional kind of like tooth thingy with like a base where you can stick it right there, right where the chin piece kind of meets the base of the mask there. Okay, and with that done, you cut out this piece. This can be out of like an 8 or 10 millimeter, or even another 5 millimeter. What that's gonna do is glue to the inside of the mask here, so that it prevents it from caving in on itself, and it gives it a little bit of structural stability. All right, and that's pretty much it for the construction of the face mask. Obviously, I went over with a hot knife and gave some textures. You can also do these types of textures with a Dremel, or even with your X-Acto blade. Do a couple of slices, heat it up, open it up, and stuff like that. So you can get super creative with the weathering of this piece. All right, so that's our face mask. Okay, next up we'll move on to the main part of the helmet itself. It doesn't mean these platings here, it means the base of the helmet itself, which you can barely see because there's platings all over the place. But usually my helmets are made out of 4 or maybe 5 pieces. You can kind of see the seam lines here. So this is the side panel here on the side, middle, right? And this gives you about half the helmet. Then you mirror, and it gives you the other half of the helmet. And these pieces are these that you see here, and you will have these registration marks to line everything up. So as you can see, the helmet starts here, right? This is kind of like the eye socket where this is here, okay? And then you make sure that the tick marks match up all the way through the back. Before you glue these two to each other, you want to transfer all of your information on your foam. You want to glue this piece closed, which will give you this kind of like the dome shape back to the side of the head here. And you also want to heat the entire thing and shape it a little more so that you can give it a little bit more of a rounded three-dimensional shape. And you can do this with a heat gun and using your elbow, just kind of routing it off. You can use your knee, any rounded surface, to just kind of form the shape around it and give it a little bit more rounded feel. And same thing with these. You're going to want to connect these, all of these, to each other, okay, to finish the shape. Shape it, curve it, nice and curvy, and you're going to make sure all of these points connect as you glue these pieces together. And once you do this, you'll have a half of a mask. Flip your patterns, do the other half, put them together, you have a helmet base. Okay, this came out of a previous mask build. I tend to use the same bases for most of my helmets. That way I don't have to redo the patterns all of the time. So this has a little bit of a nose here that you can just, once you've assembled it, you can just trim it off, or you can keep it if you like. But this particular TigreX helmet doesn't have anything pointy coming down over the nose. So once you've assembled it, just grab a marker, trace a nice straight line as even as you can, and just cut off the excess, and you should be good. And that's the base of the helmet. The little teeth that you see here, the same little teeth pattern that we used previously on the face mask in front, you can use the same pattern to make these little teeth on the side. Okay, so that is the helmet base. All right, so the horn, fairly simple, probably the easiest part of this whole build. It's just one piece of foam. You can double it up, as in you can do 2 pieces of foam, stick them together, and make it a lot thicker. I didn't feel the need to, because I thought that this worked nicely as a 10 millimeter piece of foam. But if you wanted to make it thicker, you can always glue a 10 mil to a 5 mil, or a 10 mil to a 10 mil and make it 20 millimeters. It's completely up to you with the final look that you're trying to go for. Your patterns will have general guidelines on where like these detail lines go. As you can see, I've already drew some of here, but digitally, once you guys download the patterns, this is going to be a lot more, it's going to have a lot more information on it. It's going to be a lot more detailed. But that's pretty much it for the horn. What I did is, if you can see here, this is kind of squared off, but here's kind of falls at kind of a slight angle. So I just kind of beveled the edges, softened them a little bit so that it wasn't like a harsh transition. Here I softened the top a little bit, definitely went in with my wood burner and burned in a lot of the details before doing any paint or anything like that. And also heated the whole thing up, gave it a little bit of a curve. It's not exactly flat, it does have a slight curve to it. It's very subtle, you can barely tell, but it is there. So if you wanted to curve yours more, obviously you could do that. If you wanted to make it so that the horns are posable, for example, you could put a metal wire on the inside of your piece, and then you can sandwich that together with contact cement with another piece of 2 mil, 5 mil, 10 mil, however thick you want the horn to be. That way, when you bend it, it kind of holds its shape exactly where you want it to be. So that's a technique that you can use if you see fit. All right, so that's the horn. Next up, we're going to talk about the face shield, which is this part here, right? So obviously this is the pattern for the face shield. One of the things that I meant to do on this build that I didn't, there is a bit of a hard line here. I ended up doing that with painting and shadowing afterwards, but there is a hard line here for this piece. And what you can do is do a valley cut on the inside of your foam where you see this line is on your pattern, and then just kind of fold and glue that cut into itself, so it gives you that little bit of that fold that exists there. But again, just like any of the other parts, you want to cut this out of your foam, you want to transfer your information onto the piece, you want to heat this, you want to bend it, give it a shape. As you can tell, this is very nicely curved, so you do want to get that curve in to your piece of foam before you glue it to its other half, right? Again here, there is a bevel cut on the front part of the helmet, from the front all the way to the back, at the top piece. And this could be anywhere between 25 to 30 degrees. I wouldn't go more than that because it's gonna make it a little too angular. This isn't that much of an angle, like it's not as pronounced as the angle on the face mask. It's a lot less subtle, okay, or a lot more subtle, right? So that's why we do 25 to 30 degrees on here instead, okay? And then, yeah, you're gonna glue those two halves together, just like we talked about doing the helmet base. Once you have those two together, you can start making these pieces here. They will be numbered, and they are numbered here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they kind of go in increments of size. These first, or these last three, I should say, you can make these out of 5mm foam. This first one, or here at the beginning here, this will be a 2mm foam, all right? And again, with these, you're gonna cut these at a 45-degree angle so that when they connect, they have that nice hard line here in the middle. As you can see, it's connected here on the inside. And once you've made all three of these pieces, it just kind of slide into each other. So you can pick how far in they slide into each other. I'm sure everyone has their own preference. So that's one of those things that makes it completely customizable. So once you've figured out your spacing, obviously you can tape these down temporarily with some masking tape to look at it and get a sense of, you know, if you like where everything is. And once you do, you can use a marker to trace where one ends and the other begins. Glue your pieces starting with the large one here in the back, then medium, then small, and then the flat 2mm piece that you just kind of wrap over, and helps as a transition to go smoothly into the base part. So that's pretty much it for this piece. I do have a 10mm piece on the inside here as kind of like a spine, so that it's not too floppy. You can do without this, but I like adding structure, especially somewhere that I know is going to have a lot of use. So whenever you put the helmet up, you're always holding here or holding here. So I wanted to make sure that this was sturdy by adding this on the inside. And I added the magnets in here, so you can use a Dremel or rotary tool, sanding bit, poke a hole in there, drop these in with some super glue that works really well. Gorilla Glue works really well. I'll have links in the description. And then obviously the opposite magnet on the helmet so that it catches. And then you have a thing that's on an axis, which means you can slide it up or slide it down. Take that out. And here I have a little magnet that's set at an angle that meets with another little magnet here that just points straight up. That way when I do slide it up, it has something that catches it and it doesn't fall back on its own. All right, so that is the face shield. All right, last but definitely not least are the scale plates that go on the helmet base. These are probably by far the most tricky part of the build, because there's a lot of trial and error as far as placement. So let's just go into construction first and we can talk about placement. Very similar to everything else that we've spoken about. All the information will be on your piece, right? So this is 1, so it goes at the very top, and then there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They'll all be labeled, okay? So 1 here, this line, 45 degree, stick your 2 pieces together and it will give you this top plate here, right? You're going to want to heat form this to make sure that it follows the shape of the helmet, just like everything else that we've done so far. So in a very similar fashion, you're going to build all of your other plates, okay? So this guy, same thing here. This is gonna have a 40 degree right here. There'll be like some etch lines on your digital pattern, so you'll know exactly where to cut and where not to cut, obviously. So wherever you see the cross hatches will be where you need to put your angles. So this gets assembled to itself. This becomes this piece here, right? So that's plate number 2. Plate number 3 is the largest of them all. Again, 40 degree here, and that's gonna go right there. So basically these two almost cover this and go on top of it. There's a little bit of a slot here, and that's to leave room for the horns when you guys decide to put them in, if you want to put them in permanently or with magnets or whatever the case may be. All right, so again, assembled the same way. Put your 2 pieces together so they come together at an angle. These, same thing. This is this plate under here. You're going to cut these at an angle. Same thing here at an angle, here at an angle. Your patterns will have the angle and the location of where you need to cut. Glue them together until you have all 6 pieces assembled. All right, so 4, 5, 6. Once you have all 6 pieces assembled, what you're going to want to do is grab some masking tape. You're gonna grab your first plate. You're going to look at your helmet. You're gonna try and find the point where you want to put this in. As far as the one that I've made and how it ended up turning out, I'm about half an inch away. The edge of the first plate is about half an inch away from the end of the seam of this first seam here on the side of the helmet. So if you want a point of reference of where to start gluing your plates to get a sense of how they land. And what you're gonna do is use some tape here, and you know, turn it around, look at it, make sure that it's symmetrical, and just keep building, okay? You're gonna lift this up, you're gonna put this one down, you're gonna use some tape to tape it down, keep going until you have all of your pieces. And then just start moving them around, and once everything is temporarily put together and it looks good enough, you're gonna grab a marker and you're going to trace where everything overlaps. That way when you put it back together, you know exactly where the glue needs to go, okay? And that's pretty much it for this one. Obviously, this was painful to do because this was all done by hand. I will try to get DIY kits for these so that you guys have pre-cut parts ready to go, and you can just follow the instructions in this video for assembly, even though it's not a full tutorial proper, but I talk about all of the angles, how they come together. And as I mentioned before, this is more geared towards people who are a little bit more advanced and have more experience with EVA foam prop building. All right, and that's pretty much it for the details. This side panel here clearly is this, and this is one of the last pieces I glue to the helmet. Literally, I painted everything and everything was done. I painted these two separately, and once the helmet was completely assembled, I just kind of went in, I figured out what angle worked best, and I glued about this much of this to the actual helmet, and then here I cut here at an angle, maybe like a 45. Again, you'll see the information on your digital patterns. 45-degree angle, and I glued that to the last plate here on the inside so that it kind of flares out. So one point of contact right about here, and then the last point of contact right here. So that flares out. Another thing that I would have wanted to do, I didn't think of it until afterwards. Once you wear this helmet, it becomes a little hard to hear because you're so encased in foam. One thing that you guys can do is, because this plate is here, you can cut out a nice big circle here that not only will, a nice big circle from your base. So cut a circle into your base that's underneath here. That way you have not only room for your ears to possibly sit, but you also have extra ventilation in the helmet, and you're able to hear a lot better because there's nothing obstructing your ears. All right, and that is pretty much it for this build. The circuit that I ended up using for this is not super complicated. I just have two red LEDs, 5-volt LEDs. They're connected in parallel, and the wire runs through the helmet. A little bit of glue tacked here to keep it together, a little bit of glue tacked here to keep it together. This is hot glue, high temperature hot glue. I'm also going to put a piece of tape here so that it doesn't tend to want to come out, like if you've been sweating in the helmet or anything like that. And then I attached everything here to the back of this last plate. That way it's super easy to access and turn on and off. All right, and that is pretty much it for this one. I know that this is a very different format from what you guys are used to seeing on the channel. But then again, sometimes I just don't have the time to do a full proper tutorial, and I'm hoping this, at least this way, you guys still have access to a lot of the stuff that I make that you can make yourself, instead of them just being hidden and never shown ever to the rest of the world because I didn't record anything for it. So I'll be doing a lot more of these. Hopefully this format kind of works. Again, I'm not trying to replace my proper full length tutorials with these types, but sometimes if I don't have the time to do something, this is the best that I can do to give you guys access to be able to make the same stuff as well. All right, so hope this one was useful. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope y'all learned something. If you bought the patterns on giveawaystudios.com or on my Etsy, I appreciate the support. And let me know in the comments what you guys think I missed. What do you think could be done a little bit better about this series? Did I go too fast? Did I go too slow? This is the first time I'm doing one of these, so you guys' feedback is going to be super useful to make these types of tutorials, not tutorials, but breakdowns in the future more useful and easy to follow. All right, so this has been Cass from Giveaway Studios, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Cheers.